Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're talking about my test results after 1 year on a raw primal animal-based diet. So almost exactly a year ago, I came to the end of this long stretch where I was just trying every single possible diet to deal with some chronic health problems. And I started out by switching to like a vegan plant-based diet, and that worked well for a while. And then I sort of crashed on that, and I went to like pescatarian, and then I went back to eating just like everything except for sticking to whole foods. And then I tried keto, and I tried paleo, and I tried like multiple combinations of all these things. And then finally in August of last year, I tried a cooked carnivore diet where I was literally just eating cooked meat all day, and that absolutely didn't work for me. I just was having horrible acid reflux, and I really didn't know where to go from there because I had tried absolutely every possible combination of food or every diet there is. But the diet that had kind of worked the best for me in terms of how I felt, at least in the short term, was raw vegan. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's not the vegan food, maybe it's the raw, So maybe I could take veganism and combine it with carnivore into this sort of like raw meat diet. And at the time I hadn't even heard of raw primal, so literally I just went to the grocery store and I bought some raw ground beef, like 80/20, and I just had a spoonful of it, which seemed to be fine. I didn't get sick or anything, so the next day I had 2 spoonfuls, and the day after that I had like fourth a cup, and I just kept scaling up and up and up, and nothing ever happened to me. And then I started ordering different things, and then I realized there was this diet called raw primal, which was founded by Agenus Vonderplanitz. But really in the back of my mind those first few months I was thinking, this can't possibly work, right? It's just too different from everything else I've ever tried, everything anyone's ever told me about what's healthy and what's not healthy, what's safe and what's not safe. But I don't know, it just kept working for me. My energy got better and better, and I had some roadblocks along the way where I had to figure out how to do things in terms of balancing, getting enough of this and not enough of that, etc. Now here I am. I've been eating pounds and pounds of raw meat and animal-based products. I've done kefir and raw butter, raw oysters, raw brain, raw egg yolk. And I'm going to make a separate video to talk about all the positive benefits that I've experienced on raw primal. But yesterday I got the results from my htma, stands for hair tissue mineral analysis, and it's really helpful for looking at your nutritional levels. So yeah, we're going to see how it compares to 1 year ago with the same test. For starters, on the left here you've got calcium, and I was pretty low. I was around 43, and I'm kind of at the bottom of the reference range here. Obviously you want to be in the middle, maybe slightly above that. And this was kind of interesting because it didn't really change from 1 year ago, which is surprising because I was eating a ton of raw milk. So I actually, if anything, I would have thought my calcium would have gone way up. But you can see this is from this year. It's 42, so basically the same. What did change though was my magnesium. This is a really good marker for stress. So last year it was at a 2.8, that second one there. And then after a year on raw primal, it went up to a 5.3. So now I'm right in the middle of the reference range, exactly where I should be. And most people these days are deficient in magnesium because, like I said, it's associated with stress. It's the element that helps you relax. And then this is huge. If you look at where I was last year of sodium and potassium, it's way jacked up to the top of the chart, like it's actually off the chart. And sodium and potassium are often seen as another marker of extreme stress when they're highly elevated. Like the chart ends at 65, and I was at 83 for sodium, 157 for potassium, which is like yikes. But other than just the diet working for me in general, and I think higher fat kind of like calming my body down, I also stopped eating sea salt, and my sodium and potassium were actually still pretty jacked up halfway through raw primal. So I think getting rid of sea salt and relying more on like coconut water and just other meats and whole foods and organs was really important in terms of getting those two to come down to a much more healthy level. But the thing that I'm most proud of is copper. You can see right here I was on the very bottom of the reference range, and this kind of put me in the category of like suicidal depression. Like, I'm not kidding. But yeah, it was at a 1.1, and then this year you can see copper is up to a 2.0, which is huge. I'm now in the center of the reference range, and I can feel it, like my creativity is up because copper is absolutely essential for creativity and just kind of like energy, happiness, dopamine as well, which is a huge one these days because most people are super burned out from social media and watching YouTube videos. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, no matter what diet I ate, whether it was vegan or raw vegan or keto, pescatarian, cooked carnivore, and even taking high amounts of synthetic supplements, my copper level never improved over 9 htmas in 4 years except on the raw primal diet. Another nutrient that improved was zinc. It started at a 12 right here last August, and then it went up to a 15, And actually the HTMA that I did in the middle of raw primal, about 6 months in, my zinc was way jacked up, and that was because I wasn't getting enough copper. And it's actually really hard to get enough copper on an animal-based diet, because the only thing that has a really high amount of copper but a lower amount of zinc is beef liver. So once I figured that out, I started having 150 grams of beef liver per day. I've had no problems at all with vitamin A toxicity. That's like a whole separate topic, but yeah, it was highly effective in getting my copper ratio to zinc ratio. Next up is phosphorus. This is actually one that got worse. So it was 19 last year before I started raw primal, and then now it is down to 14. Still kind of in the middle of the reference range, but it could be that I need to work something in, like bones or other connective tissues. And recently I actually found at the Mennonite place that I order from, they have this ground mix where it's like ground beef, and then they grind up some like chicken bones and feet. So I have some of that coming, and I'll probably make a video about what that tastes like and if it feels good. Next up, we've got iron, and last year I was at a 0.8. I was at the low end of the reference range. And then going to this year, I went up to a 1.8, so I'm actually a little bit high on iron now, and it's pretty easy to get things to come down. You know, it's more easy to do that than it is to get something to come up if you're nutritionally deficient. So it could be a matter of getting my calcium up. Calcium is an element that's related to iron, so if calcium goes up, sometimes iron will come back down, and maybe the ground bone will help with that, but we'll see. One nutrient I made some slight progress on was manganese. It was at a 0.027 at the lower end of the reference range. And then this year it went up to a 0.031. Manganese is one that's a little bit harder to get on an animal-based diet. So with raw primal, you do mix in some raw fruits and some other kind of lower toxicity plant foods. I recently started eating a whole coconut every day, so both the water and the coconut meat, and it's supposed to have about 90% of the RDA for manganese, but I'll have to wait until the next HTMA to figure out if that's going to be enough or not, because I just started doing it, so it's not going to show up on this one. The only like freak thing that happened on this HTMA was chromium. You can see it's like way jacked up, and this could potentially be one of the drawbacks of an HTMA. You can see it was just in the middle of the reference range before I started raw primal last year. Because you're taking a hair sample essentially, so it is possible for things to get mixed in there. And when I see something like this on an HTMA where it's like way off, then it can potentially be an issue of getting something in there, like my electric razor or something. Maybe it's a little bit rusty. What else? Selenium, which is really important. That's a balancing element for iodine. And before, my selenium was at a 0.15, and that's actually too high. And apparently when selenium is too high, that can sometimes be a marker for cancer, so not good. But you can see that after a year on raw primal, it went down to 0.07, which is maybe slightly low, but pretty close to the center reference range. Lastly, for sulfur, and this isn't a huge difference, but I started out at a 43.18 right there. And then this year I went up to a 45.50. So getting, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much perfect right there at the end of the chart in the middle of the reference range. And sulfur is important for joints too, so I'm hoping I can keep this positive trend going, and maybe that's one of the things that'll improve. But overall, I'm really happy with the results. This is the first time that I've gotten to HTMA and felt like there was a strong connection between what I was doing with my diet and what was showing up on the HTMA in terms of my actual test results. Especially if copper, you know, it was just so cool to see it just like flatline, 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 test after test. And then when I get on to liver, which has a really high copper to zinc ratio, you know, it totally fixed the balance in really a very short amount of time. I think I was only on high copper for maybe a couple months. And the whole sodium and potassium thing was really cool too, because once I stopped eating sea salt, both of those just came right down, and I could feel it, you know, in my stress level every day. So yeah, that's an overview of my test results 1 year later on raw primal animal-based diet. But if you're interested in learning more about eating this way, you can watch my raw primal what I eat in a day video, or my high meat vlog to see what it's like eating fermented meat for the first time. Finally, if you have a question about the raw primal diet or about natural health in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.